There's definitely no puns. There are definitely no puns. Like, the 11th hour is kind of cutesy, but it's not really a pun.
Yeah, I guess not.
Power of Three was just terrible.
The title, or?
Well, yeah, but we could extrapolate to the entire episode.
Okay. Well, I'm okay with that.
Yes, as I think we've already covered.
I'm Tom Dickinson.
And I'm Louis Midas.
And this is The Cloister Room,
a podcast about Doctor Who and other things.
Myth Makers.
Yeah, those myth makers.
Did you watch a reconstruction? Did you listen to the audio?
I listened to the audio, actually.
So you didn't even watch the reconstruction?
I didn't even watch the reconstruction.
Oh.
And to be honest, I liked this better.
Just listening to the audio with the linking narration?
Yeah, I liked it felt more, I don't know, cohesive, I guess. When we watched Evil of the Daleks, there was something I found a little jarring about just the still images and then the text and then also the audio, and I guess I just felt like I was being like assaulted in three senses. You know, actually that doesn't even, two senses, but one of them was reading, so that I feel like reading should be its own sense.
Reading is sure, why not? Why not?
Yeah, yes, that's anyway. And I don't know, it just felt kind of I don't know. I almost want to say like disjointed or something, but this felt much more like I was just being told a story featuring, the First Doctor and Vicky and Steven. And I don't know, I just liked that. I thought that was...
Yeah, that makes a certain amount of sense. I do prefer the reconstructions myself.
Yeah. In
this case, I listened to the audio with Peter Purvis narrating over it, and then had the reconstruction also playing at the same time.
Yes.
So I got the nice, clean, narrated audio, and I got the... barely any images because there were no telesnaps taken of this story. So there's just like random promotional images and like a picture of the Trojan horse that I have no idea what source it came from. But, I suppose in that circumstance, any picture of a Trojan horse will do. And a couple of like off-air clips.
Oh, yeah?
Like where someone pointed a camera at the screen and captured like 3 or 4 seconds at a time, like almost like Vine. They vined it, basically.
Wow.
In 1967 or whatever this was.
Wow, they were really forward thinking. They were
1965? 1965. Sure, let's call it 1965.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so they were prepared for Vine long before Vine even existed.
Exactly. I don't know who did this. And all of the clips tend to have Vicky in them. So it's been theorized by the wife in space that whoever did this just had a crush on Maureen O'Brien.
I would not doubt that for a second. That sounds like a
quite plausible.
Yeah, that is now my theory as well. That's my headcanon.
Yeah, so essentially what I'm saying is you didn't really miss all that much by just sticking to the audio.
Well, okay then. I'm glad, because that was a concern of mine.
And you say this was a more satisfying experience than watching a reconstruction. But what did you think of the story?
Overall, I liked it. Well, first of all, it was very refreshing to get a pure historical, and it was interesting to have an episode of Doctor Who focusing on not necessarily an actual event, but something that has been written about as if it were an actual event. I think that's how the Iliad is written. I actually don't know because I've never actually read the Iliad.
I've read bits of it. I don't think I've ever read the whole thing all the way through, but it's the Iliad was like an oral history almost. So
okay.
most of what we know about the Trojan War is probably ridiculously warped,
Right.
as the Doctor kind of references
Right.
in the story. But so it's set in like a well-established story that any given viewer might or might not be very familiar with.
So and I liked it. It was fascinating, and it was something that I don't know. I found myself just very curious to see just how much it was going to follow the events that I'm aware of in the Iliad. Just overall, just kind of seeing characters like Odysseus and Paris and people like that. I don't know. I found it very fascinating.
I don't think the Trojan horse is actually even in the Iliad.
Oh, is it not? Oh, right, because that's no. Wait, really? Is it in the Odyssey?
I think it's referred to in the Odyssey, but the Odyssey happens afterward. I think the Iliad happens before, and the Odyssey happens afterward. The Iliad is a story of Achilles and his sort of grief after his friend dies, and how he sort of gets back into the battle afterward. And then after that, the later stages of the war happen, which is when the Trojan horse thingy goes down. And then the Odyssey is kind of referenced in this when Cassandra tells Odysseus that he's not going to see home for 10 years. That's his 10-year journey home, during which time at one point I think someone tells someone else about the Trojan horse, and it's sort of narrated a little bit, but it doesn't happen. It happens as a flashback, I guess you would say.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right, yeah. It's been a long time since I've read the Odyssey, so
yeah, and there might be any number of other poems that Homer came up with that don't survive. One of which may, be an in-depth story of the end of the Trojan War that includes the Trojan horse story.
Right.
This is me all reciting from memory, like the one class I took in on the subject.
Yeah, and I mean, it's more authority than I have, so I have to just accept what you're saying.
Well, good.
I think it's the way it ought to be.
Might as well just accept it, because I'm not gonna Google it or anything. So yeah, might as well be true.
It might as well be. But yeah, well, and I liked, because especially in the Odyssey, Odysseus is sort of portrayed as being this kind of really clever guy, not necessarily a nice person, and he certainly wasn't a nice person in this, but certainly a very clever guy. And then in this, he's kind of just sort of dumb and mean, and
I thought it was hilarious too.
No, I loved it.
I thought most of the characters, it seemed to me like in parts like it was just a big parody of what you might expect from a Trojan War story.
Right, yeah. But yeah, no, and I liked that quite a bit. So I kind of liked how it was definitely it was an established story, but it was definitely an original, or at least as far as I'm concerned, an original take on it. So I liked that.
It is very funny in the early parts of it, and then at the end, it suddenly everything devolves into chaos, and everyone dies. And
yeah, well,
and it's very stressful, intense, and dramatic. So it's kind of an interesting progression there.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah, so it covered a whole range there, and I liked it.
I especially liked the Doctor insisting that he wasn't gonna do the Trojan horse thing. That's not historical. That's got to be a myth. And then he eventually ends up doing it. I just found that very, very fun.
Yeah, especially because at first in the very beginning, I couldn't tell if it was just because I was just listening to the audio. I couldn't tell if the Doctor knew what was going on. Like, was he aware of the events of the Trojan War, or just the sort of more accurately, just the stories about the Trojan War? And so I wasn't completely sure that he knew, about it. But then obviously he did start referencing the Trojan horse and things like that. And so I figured he did. But that's kind of funny that, it's kind of like a bootstrap paradox, where he comes up with that plan because he knew about it. So it's kind of funny, because I mean, Stephen Moffat likes doing that, but I wasn't aware that it was on it. It happened this early on. Although it's not like the Doctor acknowledges it, and I'm sure whoever was writing the script wasn't even thinking of that.
Well, I mean, I'm sure whoever was writing this script had like a keen sense of the irony of the Doctor.
Well, yeah.
At first saying, that's nonsense. It's not real. It's not historical. and then eventually making it happen.
Right. Well,
The Doctor himself, of course, being fictional.
right. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess in that sense, yeah, it would be. Yeah, I guess what I'm just saying is that I don't think the idea that it was a paradox was even considered. Or maybe it was. I don't know.
I honestly couldn't say.
But whatever.
The writer for this being Donald Cotton, who would then go on to write The Gunfighters.
Oh.
Another story I'm quite fond of.
Well, there you go.
Featuring, a somewhat light and comedic take on the Doctor's intervention in a horrendously violent conflict.
Which also features, if I'm not mistaken, a musical number.
More than one. Well, I mean, I guess you could say it's one over and over. Like, it's the same song over and over. We'll get there eventually.
I have to say, I'm already excited. I do have to say, I really wish that they would start doing pure historicals again. Just, just one every now and again would be really fun.
Yeah, I think that someone high up has it in their head, and has had it in their head since the series began, that you can't do a Doctor Who story without a monster in it.
Well,
without like some kind of creature effect or something. And the only one I can think of that doesn't have any, non-human monsters appearing on screen is Midnight, which has an audio thing.
Right.
Instead of like, there's no one in a costume, there's no CG creature. Unless I'm forgetting something, which I may well be. Everything else has some kind of monster in it.
Right. Even the Vashta Narada, which are basically just shadows, still, well, first of all, they appear as shadows, but they also have the sort of skeleton spacesuit thing that's kind of an not necessarily iconic, but sort of a very vivid image.
Right, and like, for instance, Human Nature and the Family of Blood. I mean, you have these aliens that, take the form of humans, and they look like humans, and then, let's just have them have some soldiers, I don't know, scarecrows, why not?
Right, yeah, that's true. Yeah, so it seems like, that's kind of weird that there is always a very, very, a very obvious monster, for the Doctor to fight. Yeah, and I would say that, maybe that was true within the first few seasons of New Who, like maybe get sort of your bearing and sort of establish what, the norm is for the Doctor. But then, a few seasons after that, I think you can start, sort of taking risks and sort of not necessarily having a clear monster and things like that. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think if you look at something like the Aztecs, you'd have a hard time, I think, doing something like that.
Well, yeah.
In a modern day, for a modern contemporary audience who likes Doctor Who. I mean, it's kind of serious and dramatic and doesn't have a lot of fun in it. But I mean, with a story that's closer to this, I feel like you could do something along these lines if you made it sort of have comedic elements as well,
right?
And have like familiar characters that sort of behave in amusing ways. So
yeah, and the story of the Trojan War is already very accessible because even if you haven't actually read these works, you sort of know what went on and what was about. Maybe you saw the movie Troy or whatever.
Maybe.
You never know.
I didn't, but maybe you did.
I didn't either, but
someone did.
Yeah. So a story like this is pretty accessible.
I don't think anyone saw it as of the time that this was made, though.
Well, that's true. That's a good point. Actually, I wonder if Vicky, who's from the future, saw the movie Troy.
Maybe. Stephen is also from the future, so
right.
he could well have as well.
Yeah, so maybe they both saw the movie Troy. Maybe in the future that's how they're taught about the Trojan War. But anyway, it's already accessible. I mean, like, especially when you're taking, in like the fires of Pompeii, were the lava aliens really even necessary? I mean, like, the idea of the Doctor going to Pompeii right before the volcano erupts is a very cool concept, and you probably don't even need an alien in there. I don't know.
Right. I mean, that's a 44-minute story or so, and I mean, if you took the alien out, you'd need to come up with something else to fill up, 18 minutes of that. But you probably could.
Yeah, yeah, and it might have been who knows? It could have been a stronger story as a result. Could have been an actual like conflict of people against people, and you'd have to like solve a moral dilemma or something. I don't know. But just, yeah, so things like that are definitely doable, I think, in the new series. And I would just like to see that.
Mm-hmm. Were there monsters in A Christmas Carol? Oh, wait, there's a shark. There's a flying shark.
Right. Yeah, there is a shark and fish, which aren't really monsters, but
I mean, I guess not. Well, if fish aren't monsters, then there are no monsters in Vampires in Venice either.
That's a good point. That's a good point. We have
the Vampires of Venice. Sorry, not Vampires in Venice. I'm never gonna get that right.
Yeah. Well, they're just what, articles? Is that what they are?
Yes.
Those aren't important.
So, what was this the first story that you had seen with Vicky in it?
Yeah, it was. And I have to say, I thought she was pretty good, actually.
She was the replacement for Susan. Basically, she's supposed to kind of fill the same general role, but panic less, whine less, and be kind of more fun and upbeat.
Okay.
And she generally is. I don't know if this story necessarily shows that aspect of her, because like I said, things get kind of crazy at the very end.
Right. Well, I mean, I think certainly when she, because there's that one part where they bring the TARDIS into Troy, and then she sort of steps out of the TARDIS, I guess in costume or whatever. Mm-hmm. That was kind of an interesting thing. I mean, like, she didn't have to do that, because maybe she wasn't aware that the TARDIS wasn't actually made out of wood and could have survived a fire, but it still showed she was willing to take initiative in some form, even if it did kind of get her into more trouble. Are
you familiar at all with the story of Troilus and Cressida?
I am not.
I'm only kind of familiar. Basically, it's from medieval Trojan War fanfic. Like, I don't think there's any Troilus and Cressida stuff in actual, like, classical literature. I think that comes in the medieval era, where Troilus, who's an established character, they came up with this Cressida character who they ship with Troilus, and then Cressida. I believe the actual story is that Cressida betrays him and gets with, I forget the character's name. Whatever Stephen was being called in this story.
Oh, right.
Stephen, whatever pseudonym Stephen had in this story was the name of the character that Cressida betrays Troilus for. So theirs is not a happy story in medieval Trojan fic, but
they were the OTP.
Exactly. There's a Shakespeare play about them too.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So this is so that would have, so if I had been aware of this stuff, then I would have, when they said their fake names, I would have been like, that's a clever reference that I am understanding because I know these things, which I didn't say to myself because I didn't understand those things.
I guess not. Yeah, so she leaves the TARDIS to become a famous literary character.
Well, there you go. So yeah, this is just like when I first encountered Dodo, I got the tail end of Vicky's run
and the beginning of Katerina.
That's right. Yeah, just like Polly and Ben.
Only Polly and Ben last longer than Katerina does.
Oh, really?
Katerina does not last very long.
Well, because she's like an ancient Trojan, so I imagine time travel is going to be kind of a shock for her.
It is, and throughout the entire time she's on the show, she continues to think that the Doctor is Zeus. But like I said, it's not a very long time at all.
Well, okay then. Well, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, I think that this is kind of interesting, just seeing how diverse the First Doctor's companions are, and how he'll just pluck them out of different points in time. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is kind of a different dynamic, particularly because there's not the sense that the Doctor can go anywhere he wants.
Right.
So it's not so much like, hey, I'll pick you up and then we'll go traveling and then maybe I can bring you back. It's not so much that. It's you're a transplant. You're leaving and you're probably never going back to the place where you were born.
Right.
So deal with it. Although in some cases they do, but their reasons for coming with him tend to be a little bit different from the reasons in 70s or 80s Doctor Who.
Right. Well, there you go. Yeah, and I don't know. I like that, and I mean I think I know we've talked about how with the Doctor not having the ability to just drop someone off where they want, that sort of lets you have characters who don't always necessarily get along having to share the TARDIS and having to just deal with each other, and I like that, and I don't know, there's something kind of refreshing about it.
Yeah, I am overall a fan of that kind of dynamic, and I mean, I can understand why they don't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It makes the Doctor more creepy if that's the way it is.
Right.
So it's probably for the best that isn't the norm anymore, but I do think there are trade-offs to no longer doing that. So
yeah.
And Katarina actually, in a 4-part story, she doesn't appear in parts 1, 2, and 3. She just randomly shows up in part 4.
Right.
And then gets foisted on the Doctor, almost like at random. Like she basically gets shoved into the TARDIS by Vicky. So
yeah. It's definitely interesting. That's definitely an interesting way to get a companion. Yeah, she's ostensibly kidnapped.
She would have died though if she had
all right
stayed behind.
So
one might say she's been rescued.
Let's go with rescue kidnapped.
Sure, rescued napped.
Exactly. Yeah.
Kind of disappointed that we don't get to actually watch these episodes.
Yeah. This one would be a very interesting one to see. Well, they all would, but I don't know. I'd be interested to see this one.
Yeah, I kind of want to see how they did the Trojan Horse.
Yeah.
What the sets look like, and because there's so little visual material from the story, we just don't know.
Yeah. I think that because that was something I was actually kind of wondering as I was listening to it. I was wondering what, like, especially what it looked like on the inside of the Trojan Horse and things like that. And it's just like, I liked using my imagination, but at the same time, I don't know. At some point, people knew, and there are probably people alive today who could tell us, what it looked like.
Yeah, including the actors who were in it.
Well, it's true.
Many of whom are still alive, I'm sure.
Yeah.
At least some of whom I know are still alive, but probably a bunch of them, and some of the crew. And
yeah, maybe they can sort of paint for us this. Maybe we should get them to all describe it and then use that to, I don't know, make a cartoon or something.
I'm hoping that what I'm really hoping is that eventually all of the episodes of Doctor Who that have been lost will come back.
Right.
Probably won't happen, but I'm hoping for that.
Yeah.
But as a secondary thing, I'm hoping that all the ones that don't come back get animated.
Yeah, that would be cool.
And so far, a fair few have been. Basically, it's they generally tend to animate when only 2 episodes are missing from a story.
Okay.
At most. So they haven't yet set their sights on doing animations for stories like this that are entirely missing.
Right.
But when a story like The Invasion or The Underwater Menace or The 10th Planet, which only has 1 episode missing, those are the ones that they've tended to focus on because they're the cheapest to do.
Yeah, and I can understand why they'd want to do that. So I think that would be nice to get it all animated eventually, because then you'd at least have sort of a complete story, kinda as close as we possibly will ever be able to get.
Yeah. They could always ask Ian Levine for help.
They could, and then he'll invite everyone over for dinner, and we can all watch it.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
It would. It would be very nice.
He did already do. I think he did an animated version of Mission to the Unknown.
Oh, that was
the 1-part story that immediately precedes this. And actually, this is kind of an interesting thing about this story is it sits in the middle of between the Mission to the Unknown, which is a 1-parter, and the Daleks' Master Plan, which is the following story that's 12 parts.
Oh, wow.
And Mission to the Unknown is actually sort of a prelude to the Daleks' Master Plan.
Really?
So, yeah, you get Mission to the Unknown, which is a story that doesn't involve the Doctor, has no main cast members in it, and is just like... It's just like some random bit part characters that don't have anything to do with anything, sort of starting off this Dalek story that ends on a cliffhanger, and then you tune in next week, and there's this thing with Greeks and Trojans that has nothing to do with Daleks, and then that's a 4-part story, and then after that, they sort of pick up where Mission to the Unknown left off. So
wow,
we're kind of in the middle of that.
Yeah, it's like a 24-minute cold opening followed by, the Doctor just doing something else, and then they get to the episode. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, they it's kind of interesting that they chose to do it that way.
Well, right. I was actually just going to ask that. Was that their intention, or was there scheduling conflicts or something? Because that's
no, that was intentional.
Huh.
I don't know where that came from. It may be, and this is just complete speculation on my part. So it might be completely false, but it may be that their agreement with Terry Nation, who owned the rights to the Daleks, allowed for a certain number of episodes per year and a certain number of serials per year. That number of serials being 2, so they could do X number of episodes, I guess 13, spread across 2 serials, but they could distribute them in whatever way they wanted.
Huh.
So in this case, they just chose to lump them all together and then have one outlier. Whereas in season 2 and in season 4, they did, they split them in half.
Huh. Interesting. Well, there you have it. Let's.
There's my rampant speculation about
go.
Things that I don't know about.
Well,
we're not going to Google that either. So
no, nor should we. It's best just left unquestioned. I think it's a very cool idea, though. I mean, it's almost like how in sort of the Russell T Davies era, where you sort of, or actually any given season of New Who, where it starts with kind of an interesting hint at a bigger arc, and then it goes off and has fun for a while, and then gets serious and ultimately concludes with, that thing that was hinted at earlier. I guess that wasn't really present in Series 7, but all other series of New Who, I think, had that to some extent.
It's kind of an attempt to tell a larger scale story by sticking other stories inside of it.
Right. But yeah. I don't know. It's neat.
Yeah, it is. And eventually we'll watch both of those serials.
Maybe in order.
Maybe.
Well, we're doing so good. We're doing good so far on the Black Guardian trilogy. So
it's true.
So I'm hopeful.
It's true. I kind of liked how no one seemed able to pronounce Agamemnon. Actually, mostly it was pronounced properly, but it was flubbed on a couple of occasions. I think I heard Agamemnon.
Yeah.
At least once or twice from William Hartnell and others.
Yeah. I think I detected that as well. Yeah, well, it's challenging. Agamemnon, I would guess.
Yeah.
Especially for, I mean, you're I don't know. But yeah, that was something I'd forgotten about. I don't know how I could forget, but that actors only had like one chance to say their lines, and that was it. So that's always fun. Which is, it's kind of weird because you'd expect people to, stutter and stuff when they're talking, but then, you get to like a TV show where everyone says their lines perfectly, and I mean, you do that for a number of reasons. One of which being, just so the audience can understand them, but it's not realistic. So
right.
There's an added level of realism here. I don't know.
Yeah, I like at the end sort of the Doctor is trying to say that he's not a god, but he says, "I'm not a doc, I'm not a god." He corrects himself.
Right.
So he's saying he's not a doc.
Well, he's also not a doc. Like, ships can't be tied to him so that they don't float away.
I'm sure some can. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, at this point, I do feel kind of bad, like making fun of William Hartnell because I know he was not well.
Right.
And so that's kind of one of the reasons why he he had difficulty saying lines. But still, it's kind of there is a sense in which it almost adds something, I guess, to have the Doctor get flustered and misspeak and need to correct himself.
Yeah, I'm completely okay with that. I think Matt Smith should do that too. Sort of bring it all around.
Maybe just once for the 50th anniversary.
That's right. Yeah, it's got to be an homage to the good old days. Maybe Peter Capaldi will speak in a Scottish accent and flub his lines.
I hope so.
That'll be the more controversial of the two. I don't know. I kind of like it though. I mean, I don't know. It's weird, but I don't know. I just like it. I'm not saying that I like that William Hartnell was unwell. That is not what I'm saying. I guess I don't know what I'm saying.
Okay, well, I guess that's fine.
Yeah, I would hope so.
One of the episodes, I think it was episode 3, was going to be titled "Is There a Doctor in the Horse?" I already like small profit, quick return.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, yeah, if you're gonna include small profit, quick return, you might as well go, all the way and include "Is There a Doctor in the Horse?" I mean, come on.
I think the first one was going to be called, or one of them at least, is going to be called Zeus Ex Machina.
Nah. You know what? I am completely okay with pun titles. I think and I have to say that's another thing that New Who is missing. It's missing pure historicals and pun titles.
Yeah, I can't think of any pun titles.
Yeah, I don't think there's any puns, and that is a real shame.
It's a real missed opportunity.
It really is. Doctor Who could be so much better. Oh, what was the deal with Vicky's ankle?
Oh, at the beginning?
Yeah.
She just heard it in Galaxy 4.
Oh, okay.
Galaxy 4 was the story that preceded Mission to the Unknown.
Ah.
So you had to wait 2 whole weeks to find out what happened to her ankle.
Wow, that's tough.
After Galaxy 4, it's like, what's this Dalek stuff? Who cares about that?
Oh man, wouldn't it have been just this incredible twist if the entire Dalek story was happening inside her hurt ankle?
That would be like, I don't know, Twilight Zone kind of thing or something. Is that the kind of thing that happens on Twilight Zone? I haven't actually seen all that much Twilight Zone.
Yeah. I think the Twilight Zone has Daleks inhabiting ankles.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, come to think of it, has there ever been a Dalek story where the Daleks have been shrunk down to microscopic size and like injected into somebody? Because I feel like there's a story there.
Daleks shrunk down to microscopic size. Daleks shrunk down to microscopic size and injected into somebody. I don't think that one's been done. What would you call that?
I don't know.
Injection of the Daleks.
I think it has to be, yeah.
And then the Daleks will say, "Vaccinate, vaccinate."
Yes, exactly. That's and I mean, really, there's just so many possibilities there. I don't think it's too far fetched. I mean, we already had them in like a Dalek prison that had like a ton of Daleks in it. I mean, it was Time Lord based, but same thing. It was a bunch of Daleks in a small confined space, so I feel like it works. I don't know what the point would be for having microscopic Daleks, but I'm sure they'd be a threat somehow.
Presumably they would get in your bloodstream and attempt to annihilate all of your inferior cells and do stuff like that. I don't know.
That's right. I think that sounds just horrific and would probably be a commentary on vaccines or something.
Yeah, they'd probably give people autism. That's probably what they would do. Vaccines give people autism. That's why parents mustn't vaccinate their children. Or else the Daleks will
attack your genes. Right, that must be it. Because the autism is actually a side effect of the Daleks trying to rewrite your brain, but failing. Because they're microscopic and they get lost or something.
It's gotta be true.
I think that's it. I think we've just written a Doctor Who episode.
Well, because, Doctor Who episodes nowadays, I mean, sometimes you get the Doctor Who episode that's based on, like, a new thing that, like, plays on someone's fear about things, like, it's the satellite navigation or, Wi-Fi. I mean, there are parents who think that, if they vaccinate their children, they'll give their children autism. So
Right.
I mean, this would be playing to parents' fears.
Right. Because that's the thing, is it's a family show, so, it would be parents watching it with their children, and they'd be just freaking the hell out that, oh my god, my child is going to get autism from Daleks.
So, Mythmakers.
Yeah.
I would love to see this one back in the archives.
Yeah.
Wonder whether it's out there somewhere. I mean, there are still rumors that Philip Morris, who brought back the Enemy in the World and the Web of Fear, has more that he's hoarding.
Yeah. Well, and, I would love for those rumors to be true. Yeah, you never know. I don't know. That would be neat.
If it were recovered, would we put it back in our rotation?
I think we'd have to.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would certainly have no problem watching it again. Don't know how much we'd have to say, but you never know. I would definitely watch it. Whether or not we would actually talk about it, I have no idea.
So, Lewis, would you like me to pick the next story that we'll be watching, as per random selection, after the Mythmakers?
I would.
Alright, so I have the random selector. I am priming it. I am cranking the cranks. I am doing something to the buttons. And the next story is, it's a Big Finish play.
Ooh.
This is a Fourth Doctor Big Finish play called Wrath of the Iceni. Iceni. I don't know how that...
Okay.
But Iceni spelled, so... Wrath of the Iceni. It's from last year, or the year before.
One of those.
I think it's the year before. I think it's last year.
Huh. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've listened to a Big Finish, so that's exciting.
It sure is. I have heard this one and I like it.
Oh.
So.
Well, there you go.
So, yeah, there, indeed, I go. Yeah, this one is available for $9.
Ooh, sweet.
$8.99. That's a United States price. I don't know what the UK price is. Not that matters to you, but, our listeners.
Yeah.
Our listeners may want to know that. And it is Season 1 of the Fourth Doctor Adventures, Episode 3.
Huh. Well, there you go.
Starring Tom Baker and Louise Jameson as Leela.
Huh. I've never seen Leela before.
You've never seen Leela on TV?
No, never. Not on TV.
You're gonna hear her on audio.
Yes.